So last time out I said that I wouldn't give it all the bandwidth and talk about it at length, but the first rule of online media is go with the trends or completely 180 and go far away from them. So I'm leaning into it. That's why we're talking about 2011's Contagion, written by Scott Z. Burns, directed by Steven Soderbergh, starring Matt Damon, Kate Winslet, Lawrence Fishburne really leaning into the wise mentor role, Marion Cotillard, and Jude Law doing a very, very ropey accent, but I will come to that later. And who can forget Gwyneth Paltrow, patient 1 or 2, not necessarily 0, who isn't saved by goop. But this is one of those films that, if you're aware of some of the conspiracy theories out there that say films, Hollywood is predicting or telling us what to expect. We have things like The Matrix, The Simpsons, and even Back to the Future Part 2 in particular, apparently as being early warning signs for the September 11th attacks. We have those kind of things out there, and people say, that Hollywood is planting these ideas, they know what's going to happen, and they're kind of warning us, but not in an overt way. Just, years down the line we go, oh my God, they were warning us. No, I don't think any of that or this film is a warning to anything. Yes, there's parallels between this. It starts in Hong Kong. COVID started, Wuhan. It's China, Hong Kong. It's that area of the world. But that's about it. The disease itself is more virulent. It's a lot more protean. It does adapt very quickly. That's what protean means, in case you didn't know. It's cross-species. It comes from a bat into a pig, then into humans, which any epidemiologist worth their salt would love the end of this film for every disease. If you could see the actual path. Because the work they do at some point in the film where they're tracking on the security cameras in the casino, trying to figure out who is patient 0, that's what real disease tracking is. It's guesswork, it's trying to figure out, it's working backwards, it's reverse engineering the situation to the answer. And okay, at the end of the film, we see it, and it kind of didn't matter as long as it was cured and vaccinated against. That is the key message in a way. But still, I'm sure every epidemiologist and virologist out there would love to have that. To just have something showing them this is how it got out there. But like I say, it's a film first, and, it's got a lot of emotional drama with the Emhoff family in particular. And like I say, Gwyneth Paltrow not being saved by goop. Okay, I've made that joke twice in the video. I promise that's it. But also, him losing his son. There's a great shot, actually, when he's taking his child out of school because he's been coughing and he's being taken home. He coughs into his glove, which he then touches the door with. So we have a lingering shot on a door. In many other films, it'd be like, all right, get your arty shots out the way, let's get on with the film. But this wasn't an arty shot. This was... oops, this is what happens. People just do innocent things. They don't think about their actions. And then that's how you get spreads of viruses. All the information that's in this film, like washing your hands and social distancing, it is mentioned, in here. All these kind of things are what we are being told now. We technically had a warning, even if it wasn't intended as that. Like I say, I'm not saying that I'm going back on my word about the conspiracy theory. But the idea is there because they consulted with people who know about these things. They did their research. There was even a site that was created, which I'll link in the description if I can find it again, that actually had information about, what virologists do and, general advice, what to do if an outbreak occurs, this kind of thing. It was out there. Films like this we can look at and go, oh wait, they were kind of telling us in advance. But there's a lot in this film that, like I say, is great. It did teach me some things that I didn't know about before, like the R0, which, if you're not aware of it, it's basically how virulent, how much transmission, how fast it reproduces. That's what the R technically stands for. So an R0 less than 1 will be a situation where an infected person will infect, on average, less than 1 person each time. Obviously, you can't infect half people, they don't exist. But you will not spread it to everyone you meet. So it can die out quite naturally, quite easily. An R0 of 1 is a stable virus. It will pass from one infected person to a healthy person, who will then infect another healthy person. But it won't go to multiples. So it will be stable. Maybe some controls could be put in place to make sure it does die out, but it's not going to reach epidemic proportions. You're pretty safe. R naughts higher than 1 are the ones that we worry about. Now, I believe some strains, if not all of the modern sort of flu and things like that, tend to be 1.6 thereabouts, somewhere in that kind of middle ground. So it's not super virulent, but it's still more than one person. So it's good to keep tabs on it and try and minimise spread. As of me writing this, so even by the time of recording this and uploading it, and when you're watching it, it might have changed, but as of writing my notes, the estimated R naught of COVID-19 was between 2 and 4. So every infected person could infect 2, 3, 4 people. And that's why all these measures are being put out there. The washing the hands so that you're not coughing into your hands accidentally, like just as a default reaction because your brain just was occupied at that point in time. Washing your hands just to make sure no germs are there. Hand sanitizer if you must, if you can't get to wash your hands properly. And obviously washing them for a reasonable time, doing the proper techniques. I mean, I'm no paragon of hygiene, but when I worked in the food service industry, I learned the full proper way to wash your hands. When I was looking at the charts, I was like, yes, this is exactly the same as I was taught. Even if I'm not super great with it, I do it when I can, as of now at least. But also the big key thing of social distancing. There was a great picture I saw that you may have also seen out there of a group, like a line of matches, all on fire, a line not on fire, and one matchstick stepping back. And I think that's the best illustration. If I can find it, it'll be up on the screen about now. But I think it's the best illustration I've seen of social distancing and why it's good. The idea that, the spread would continue if that person didn't remove themselves. And that doesn't even have to be a person who's on fire, who's got the illness. It can be people who would be very susceptible. That's why they're sort of saying the elderly and vulnerable, as much as the strain on resources, but because they are probably more likely to get it and be really laid low by it, if they're out of the picture, you are cutting off avenues of transmission. It's a great idea. It's similar to the herd mentality idea that you hear bandied around when vax and anti-vax sort of fight. I'm not going to go into that in detail, but it's noticeable that anti-vax people are very quiet right now. But like I say, I'm not going to dwell on it. But one of the things I do want to touch upon is sort of leaning on all of that information. It's kind of like an analysis and a bit of a PSA in one. But I did see a comic strip that was about the idea of reacting and responding. And I loved it. It was, again, another great illustration. To react to something is a visceral, emotional, instinctual response. You hear a glass drop and you turn around really quickly just to see what's gone on. You might, if it's a child who's dropped it, you might shout at them because you're just reacting. But responding is what we should all be doing, and that does apply to the situation. The comic strip itself was geared towards now. In that scenario, a child drops a glass, you don't shout at the child. The child did not throw it on the ground aggressively. If it did, okay, chastise the child. But if it just dropped out of its hand, what have you lost? There's a bit of water on the floor, or whatever they were shards, and there's some glass shards. Well, they need to be cleaned up. That's priority. The child's probably scared because sudden smashing on the floor is quite a jarring noise. It caused you to react to it or respond to it. So you clean it up and you reassure the child it's fine. Or just go to IKEA and get another set of glasses. But there is a difference. The reaction response doesn't solve anything. It just is, boom, I need to do something. Response is considered. You think about the actions. Can you do anything to help it? What can you do to help it? How do you make sure that everyone's fine and solve it? And that's what we all need to do now. The panic buying and things like that just don't make sense. Shops keep saying we're getting supplies, but those supplies are going fast because people are going, oh, they've got them back in, I need to hoard again. No. If you stop doing that and just buy what you need when you need, it won't happen. The shelves will still be stocked. If we get notification that shops are all closing, they'll probably bring in some kind of rationing. So you're never going to be really stuck without anything. But I don't want this to be a, lambasting people and sort of doom and gloom and, talking about what's the worst case scenario. I do just want to quickly talk about a couple of things that made me chuckle at the film a little. And the first one, I think you know what the last one's going to be, but the first one is seeing Mathazar from Galaxy Quest and Walter White, Enrico Colantoni and Bryan Cranston on screen. I love both these guys, particularly Galaxy Quest is something that I've really latched onto. I've loved that film since I first saw it. And, you know, it's great to see him in roles that aren't Mathazar, but I can't not see him as Mathazar. It's almost like, weirdly, him being in Homeland Security, you know, their motto is kind of never give up, never surrender. They're always about, you know, protecting the homeland. It's never give up, never surrender, and it just made me chuckle. And Bryan Cranston is a treasure. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, like I say, you may have guessed this, again, is Jude Law's atrocious accent.
It's a math problem you can do on a napkin, and that's where we're headed. And that's why you won't even tell us the number of the dead, will you, Dr. Cheever? But you'll tell your friends when to get out of Chicago before anyone else has a chance.
I get a feeling that Steven Soderbergh at some point must have had the conversation, like, Jude, I've got a mate down the pub. He probably wouldn't say mate down the pub because he's American, but I've got a mate down the pub who can do a better Australian accent than you. Just dial it, you know, up your game, or just we'll scrap it. That conversation must have happened. I don't understand how he could have been happy with what came out. I don't understand how Jude Law was happy with what came out. It's terrible. Either drop the accent or get an actual person with the accent in, or someone who can do it much better. I don't understand why that was in there. It's one of the things that bugs me about this film. I mean, there's a lot of problems with this film. You know, I'm not saying it's perfect. The fact that, you know, we have a doctor basically self-testing the vaccine, and okay, it works out, but so many ethics boards would have problems with this. Maybe the two cancel each other out. She did something really stupid, but it saved everyone, so we'll let it slide. But I'd be wary of this doctor. Look at the reaction they had to Lawrence Fishburne's character. I'd be wary of this person. She's a renegade, she's a maverick. But a film is good to me if it draws you in and keeps you in. I kept being shoved out of it forcefully by Jude Law's terrible accent. That's all I'm going to say. So, yeah. If you haven't seen this film, I keep saying it, why are you watching a video that says spoilers ahead at the start? But give it a watch. It's an interesting look at what happens during an outbreak. If you haven't seen it in a while, maybe give yourself a re-look and just kind of refresh yourself on actually how close it was. But yeah, that's all I want to say about Contagion. Not a bad film, terrible accents, good advice. So I think I'm going to end with what I said before from Galaxy Quest. Never give up, never surrender. If you're self-isolating, entertain yourself as best you can. There's a lot of stuff out there. I'm keeping on ticking, so if you need recommendations for films, just look at my back catalogue, or games to play, TV series. Everything's out there. Just keep yourself happy, entertained, and most of all, safe. So as always, thank you for watching, and yeah, like I say, take care. I mean it.